Okay. And boom, according to that, I'm live. Welcome. This is Tokyo Tonight. My name is Simon. It is 10:30 p.m. Japan Standard Time. We've just had an earthquake about an hour ago. Not such a bad one. It was it was in Kanagawa Prefecture beside Tokyo, and magnitude 4.8, Shindo 3. In fact, actually, where I am, it was a 2. So a little bit over exaggerating. 2 is a tremor you might not notice if you're standing up, but you will if you're sitting down. And but it was a bit of a jolt and a long earthquake. So we get those. A little bit of excitement. Great to see so many people already rocked into the chat. We've got Mr. Cordy Chap, Quint Ranked, One Johnson. Good to see you, Quint Ranked. You read somewhere that someone was using ChatGPT for language learning. Have I heard about this? I've not, but it doesn't surprise me. One thing I found, for example, among the many magical things, the thing I've found ChatGPT most useful for is for making web pages and web apps that connect to cloud services. Although I've also found it magical for Excel functions. It's just I haven't had to make many fancy Excels lately, but I found it great for writing complex, custom-made Excel functions as well, which I love. However, when I was testing it out and playing around with it, I recall that I asked ChatGPT to explain to me the difference between, just as a test, something in my day-to-day. In contracting, in Japanese law, there are generally two types of contracts, like business contracts that you can do. One is ukeoi, which is basically where you pay once the job is done. So it's like a bicycle where you pay for once the bicycle's complete and you check that it's up to standard and then you pay. So basically it's for work done. And there's, juninin, which is basically time and materials. It's basically when you pay for an ongoing, service. So for example, you pay for per hour for the time it took to make the bicycle rather than a fixed price for the bicycle, basically. And so I just asked, can you explain to me? It's actually more nuanced and more complex than that. And it goes back to the old 19th century civil code copied from Prussia. But, I wanted to test ChatGPT out, and I said, can you explain the difference between juninin and ukiyo contracts? And I asked it using Romaji, and it kind of gave me a vague answer. But what surprised me was when I asked in English, but I wrote the words juninin contract and ukiyo contract in Japanese, even though the question was in English. When I asked, tell me the difference between ukiyo and juninin contracts, where only those words were in Japanese, it gave me, I would say, an A minus, B plus, A minus explanation. It missed some of the nuances which I consider to be important for my work and that I use when I explain to people, but it was a good summary and it clearly understood the concepts and it seemed to recognize them and understand them better when I was asking in Japanese. As far as I know, I don't know if it works actually with Japanese prompts. I think it's only an English language thing, but what I did find was it certainly does seem to recognize and at least correctly understand. And again, this is all machine model trained, so I guess it's finding where these words have possibly dictionary or encyclopedia explanations and so on, and it's using those sources and correctly saying that this is the type of response I should give. But based on that, I would say it would be excellent for language learning. If I wanted to ask it, what does this word mean, or what does this language concept mean, like a linguistics or something, and if I was looking for an explanation in English, I should think it would be good at that. Again, assuming that there's a body of reliable data for it on the internet, I'd say something like languages, you're less likely to have, malicious or, deliberately incorrect content there. I would think what's out there would probably be limited but accurate. So from that perspective, if there are grammar dictionaries and online dictionaries and so on, yeah, it's probably quite a good way to use it. I'm not sure how good it would be at translation per se, but yeah, that's a fascinating use case, Quint Ragged. Chasing peanuts already, chasing squirrels. But what can I do? We've got Odie Jr., bada bing, bada boom. Good morning. Let's get ready to boogie woogie woogie. It's late at night here. By the way, I just sharing. You're hitting middle age when you're the highlight of your week that you want to share with people is that I got mild, I think, food poisoning yesterday. My wife thought it might be norovirus, so I've been isolated in my room. But seriously, it lasted like half a day. But I was pretty bad yesterday. I'm feeling fine today. But yeah, I'm certainly not going to boogie woogie. I'm a little bit worried about what might boogie woogie out. Although I'm feeling okay today. But yeah, good to see you. We've got, what else we got in here? We've got Shubis, good morning from Panama. Sunny day in Panama. Man, I would love to go to Panama. Nice to have. You make me feel like I'm a little bit in Panama just from you being here, Shubis. So I do appreciate that. Do have a good cup of coffee. Panamania. No sound? There should be sound. I can see the audio thing moving here. Kerberos Tenshi. Can everybody else hear sound? Now I'm worried. Am I talking to myself? I can see my mic icon moving here, so it's definitely... Everybody can hear, right? YouTube messed up. Okay, so something with Kerberos Tenshi there came in and had a sound problem, which thankfully seems to be fixed. Yes, the sound appears to be on. I can see the levels. Good to see you, Kerberos Tenshi. We've got Milchman too. Yo, good to see you. Indeed, sound is good. Thank you for the reassurance there, Odie Jr. I wish I'd spotted that sooner. Moon, good to see you, Moon. Finally caught a live stream live. You've been watching since you were in high school. Wow. And you know what? Since I've been doing, I suppose, if you go back to 2.5 Voyages, I guess it's nearly 10 years. Maybe more than 10 years, actually. Tokyo Tonight, how long has this been going? Since you're in high school? I can't really tell anymore. That I guess the possibilities are up to 5 years. You know, I don't even know how long I've been doing Tokyo Tonight for. It's excellent to have you in here, Moon. I'm very glad that you can join live. And as you know the rules here, you know, not even the rules, just the system we've got going. If you want to say a comment to me or ask me a question or make a request or anything like that, just type my name, Hiko Simon, and it'll flash up orange, and I will pay special attention to those comments. But great, glad that you made it. And since high school, it's kind of mind-blowing. I must admit, I'd be worried if it was someone who's saying, I've been watching you since I was a baby. Although possibly understandable for stressed out mothers wanting to put their kids to sleep. But yes, high schools, I think, within fair range. So good to see that. Auntie Liana in Yokohama, you got the earthquake better than I got. Hope you're doing all right down there. Konbawa, good evening. January, not so good month for me. Redo New Year on February. January, just a testing month. Oh dear, I'm sorry to hear that, Auntie Liana. I do hope that February, well, Lunar New Year, right? So I think from January 24th, you get to start over. So I think you can claim that. January is January, right? I'm sorry to hear that, but I hope that you're good today anyway. I hope you didn't get too shook up earlier. I get food poisoning frequently. Do I? You know what? I mean, the last time I was that sick, it wasn't food poisoning. It was that thing where I was stuck in, I was stuck in the hotel after I got back from Singapore. Might have been food. Oh, you know what? It might have. Well, I don't know. Yes, maybe I have that impression. I guess I share it too frequently. I don't know what it was. It was just a tummy bug. I mean, I guess it was a tummy bug, but yeah, you know, not good timing. But I seem to be better now, so that's a good thing. Everyone else in here, Mr. Cordychap confirming that we have sound, as does Quint Ranked. Tudom, good to have you in here, Tudom, and sounds good. Glad to hear that. Fernando Gross, great, can hear you. Hello from Adelaide. Fernando Gross, I've been following you since I was a baby on Twitter. Possibly not, but certainly from before the big earthquake and so on. So a familiar name there, and nice to see someone from Adelaide checking in. I guess Adelaide must be a really similar time zone to Japan as well, right? Like, you're not the same as the rest of like Eastern Australia, are you? So anyway, very nice to have you in here, Fernando Gross. I've been following you on Twitter for ages, and yeah, excellent to have you. Who else we got here? We got Ada Void. Good morning, Arizona. Good to have you in here. Yeah, Auntie Liana, maybe 10 years, of course, with Oyaji's channel. That's right. Doing 2.5 Oyajis. We've been doing that seriously, like, yeah, since about 2010. So I suppose if you consider this kind of an extension of 2.5 Oyajis, it's not. It's a different thing. I wish it was. You know, it would be. It's fun doing it with Victor. I always wanted to cover more news, and you know, I like to share my own thing. With 2.5 Oyajis, Victor was the star. He's much more interesting than me. So I enjoy both for different reasons. But yeah, we've been going on for a long time with those. Currently 25 years old. You're watching 2.5 Oyajis when you're in California, currently working in a Japanese company in North Carolina, planning to move to Japan soon. Moon, good on you. It's funny how many people come to Japan from North Carolina. You'd think of all the places in America. For some reason, there is this disproportionate, like, if you come from California or Hawaii or whatever, I can sort of understand all the Japan connections. But it's so random that I seem to come across so many people from North Carolina specifically that end up in Japan. So I don't know what it is. Maybe you've got a theory, but yeah, great to hear that you're coming. I was in the same position actually when I was 23. So yeah, very good. All the best with the trip. John Carlo Lanoy, good evening. Nice to have our man from the Philippines in here. Great to have you in here. And everyone else skipping down. John Carlo Lanoy, do I know any YouTubers who are making adult content? I wish. I like what? Like OnlyFans? When you, I mean, I tried. No one signed up. I don't understand it. Look, not to my knowledge, honestly. I mean, when you say adult content, I mark this channel adult content only because you have to go through a bunch of extra approvals to make it like to have it approved as child friendly on YouTube. And since I'm talking about news, I figure that's fine. But in terms of like adult content, as in like adult content, well, of course, YouTube doesn't have that. So it's people who are doing stuff off site. I don't know of anyone in particular who does that, but if they do, I mean, power to them. For me, I've never been offered the opportunity. So no, I don't know anyone who's doing that. But oh, Kerberos Tenshi, maybe you can swap DMs or something like that. Honestly, I'm happier not knowing. I would prefer not to know, honestly. But no disrespect to anyone who's doing it, but I'm afraid I do not know. 30 minutes behind Sydney, Melbourne, Canberra, says Mr. Cordy Champ about Adelaide. I actually didn't know that. I thought, okay, so yeah. So I guess that means like 30 minutes ahead of Japan, I'm guessing. That's interesting. That's a very close time zone anyway. Get ChatGPT to explain the meanings of adult content. Yes, well, pizza delivery guy knocks on door. They don't even do that anymore, you know. I don't know. Not that I watch it. Of course I do, but you know. Yes. I don't know. There's something about the older stuff where they actually, you know, they had to make it in the old days so that you could like you know, rent it from a store and not be like put on a watch list. So they'd do like the parodies, or they'd try to put in some token story, whereas now it's all online. They don't even try anymore. I think ChatGPT would have been probably excellent for making like low budget 1980s 1990s films. But yeah, I don't know that it could really contribute much to the discussion anymore. What can we do? Pool cleaner knocks on door. Exactly. There's a large one. I mean, what's happened to those kind of movies, eh? Boogie Nights, man, that was a great movie. So anyway, that's highly distracting. Anyway, so good to see everybody walking in here. Who knows? Who knows? I've just heard crazy rumors and stories. Fernando Gross, I imagine that it does a half-hour time zone difference. Actually, I could definitely see the inconvenience. I would have thought, because I'm not thinking that you're behind Melbourne. I was thinking maybe you were in the same time zone, which I see you're not. But yeah. Kerberos Tenshi used to be a pizza delivery guy. Well, there we go. So, with all of that, I mean, I guess we might as well jump into the topics. We're 17 minutes in, and nothing much going on in Japan, just the Prime Minister saying that we're all going to die. Chaos and anarchy awaits. I am actually a member of this, but I hate being forced to log in every time I want to see a story. Essentially, what all this is about was, you know, again, Kishida, who hasn't really, other than completely reinventing the concept of capitalism, which, you know, he, of course, has done an excellent job of. He hasn't really had a manifesto or any, you know, specific sort of policies. He's kind of gone with the flow. And while not a disagreeable person, not even, I mean, other than the fact he's just overseen a cabinet where everybody's being either forced to resign because of corruption scandals, or for taking bribes from malicious religious cults. Which, you know, is not a good look. But in Japan, you know, that's something that you would have to typically resign for. He hasn't really marked out his own policy agenda. So there was a lot of hype about this big policy speech he was going to do about how Japan was going to set out new policies to counteract Japan's birth its demographic problem with its birth rate collapsing, basically where, from a blunt economics point of view, Japan is not birthing enough new taxpayers to pay for welfare for the elderly. And by the way, this is something that I was taught in Japanese class, in 1989 in New Zealand as a 13-year-old. This is a car crash we've seen coming for 50 years. People have known that Japan was going to be the first country in the world to go through this type of demographic change. Of course, now we know countries like China are not far behind Japan and going to experience the same thing in a much more dramatic way. But Japan's known forever that this was going to happen. And of course, with the birth rate just falling over time, making the problem look like it's going to get worse, there is this problem that a lot of government spending right now is spent based on like IOUs to the future. They're based on newly issued government bonds. Japan, by the way, having some of the highest debt per capita, much higher than Greece, much higher than countries that have defaulted. All the money is domestically owed, so that's why the banking system hasn't collapsed in Japan. But still alarming level of debt. But all this, it's all based on the idea that the same number of taxpayers will fund for paying it later on. The problem being now that the population going down and the tax-paying population going down, these debts will be harder and harder to pay off on future generations, which means that not only will the government have less money to spend, but they'll be exponentially more in debt. So there is this kind of problem where either the government has to start spending less or collecting more revenue. And I think he's building up to the narrative of increasing taxes, starting with the sales tax. Although at the same time that he's planning to announce this big program of how Japan's going to fix the birth rate problem, he's also announced, kind of understandably, but bad timing, that Japan is going to, for the first time since World War II, increase its spending on defense. It's been limited kind of by convention at I think 1.5% of GDP until now, and he's pledged that basically Japan is going to spend more than 2%, which is basically even what most European countries are spending at the moment. But for Japan, it's kind of dramatic. It's one of those self-imposed limitations to make Japan appear peaceful and in line with its constitution since World War II. However, with everything going on in the world and Japan wanting to contribute to collective defense, Japan is pledging to boost defense spending by twice, on a huge budget. So it suddenly is saying it's going to increase a whole bunch of taxes for that. And then right after that, he obviously had a speech coming up where he was promising to spend more on trying to increase the birth rate. However, just for what it's worth, this was a really anticlimactic speech. He did a speech. He said, "Hey, everybody, birth rate's looking bad. If we don't fix it, we're going to be screwed. So I'm going to start thinking about it." And that was his policy speech. No actual ideas. No, it was a policy speech where his policy was to think that we need a policy and to highlight the fact that if we don't get a policy, we're screwed. That was his policy speech. And, we've known that we're going to be screwed on this issue for like 50 years. So, again, love or hate Abe, but I tweeted this. Abe at least did have policies. He did have ideas. At times, crazy nationalist ones, and he didn't implement all of the ideas that he had, but he generally had a plan. Suga, I think, was actually, I think of my time in Japan, I will say that Suga's probably the most underrated prime minister. Just he's so uncharismatic, but he was good at policy, and he was good at the administration of policy. He was like a modern vice minister, but he actually, I thought, handled the pandemic. I think the track record has sort of shown that while he was terrible about communicating what he was thinking and what he was doing, he actually had good policies. But Kishida's, like I say, he's just a PR man in a suit, and this proves it. Again, that said, of course, it should be Japan's highest priority, figuring out how to make Japan a suitable environment for people to feel comfortable having families, and to figure out why people are not having families. And lots of people have lots of ideas on this. The Japanese government's solution to this until now has been to give people cash. I don't know if you want to get people in the mood to make families. I suppose dollar bills on the bed is probably one way to get them in the mood, and that's the method that the Japanese government's been using over and over, just basically paying small subsidies for education and for birth and so on, but they don't make a dent in the cost of having a child, let alone the social and career and life inconvenience, particularly the way that Japanese society is set up and the way that expectations are set around work and just what it's like to live in a big city. It seems to me, giving people cash is easy, and it's good for votes. It's kind of an excuse to put barrel, but it doesn't really actually translate to more kids. And the birth rate's been going down in spite of the handouts. What they really need to be focusing on, and what the hard part is they actually need to have policies that are designed to create an environment where people want to have kids. Actually addressing the things that make it hard, or from a work perspective, from a life convenience perspective. And there's very few countries that have been successful with these sort of policies. My impression is that Hungary is one of the few countries that set out deliberately to boost its domestic birth rate, and I understood that it had succeeded, but then I had Hungarian people tweet me that actually even Hungary didn't really work out. So, it's a hard problem, and every country in the world is heading into the same hole that Japan is sort of leading the charge into. Everybody sort of, followed Japan. So, canary in the coal mine. But yeah, PM, half points for recognizing we indeed have a terrible problem, but no actual ideas or suggestions other than he's going to listen to people. Someone said, I said, oh, he's just showing once again he has no ideas. Someone said, well, he's being a good prime minister. He's going to listen to people. And yeah, listening to people is good. But again, I think the idea of having a leader is, you expect them to lead. You're voting for something, but not the case here. So I don't know. I'm critical of Kishida as basically not bringing ideas, which is what people want to see. And maybe relevant that purely by coincidence, the newspapers are already starting to take polls on who they think would be the next most likely leader elected within the LDP. And based on polls at the moment, Kono Taro Kono continues to be the most popular choice, and I would agree with that assessment myself. He was the most popular actually when Kishida was elected. Kishida was elected only because he had a bunch of LDP factions lined up behind him. He was not the most popular candidate. Kono was. And Kono is popular because he's good at, he's shown that he has good energy, he gets things done, he has policy ideas. And maybe that is good for the LDP, rather than, getting buddy clubs to back you. Interesting, the number 2, 15.1%, that's Ishiba Shigeru, who's been basically the bridesmaid, but never the bride of LDP leadership elections. He's probably the ugliest bridesmaid that you can imagine. But he's sort of been the next expected next prime minister in waiting for about 15 years now. I don't think he's ever going to get the job. Junichiro Koizumi's son there, Koizumi, bringing sexy back to environment somehow gets 11% or 10.9%. That's alarming. Even Suga's getting 8.7%, which I think is more a reflection of how unpopular everyone below him is. I don't think he was bad, but no one really wants to go back to him. But again, I guess it shows that there aren't many choices right now. But for me, yeah, good for Ishida to recognize the hole and the problem that Japan is in. But hoping that somebody has some ideas, and not easy to fix. And I don't have ideas, but I would suggest that the traditional approach of just throwing cash at the problem probably isn't going to be the thing that fixes it. Dollar bills on the bed, maybe, I don't know. They'll have to be in Japan. Remember, you have to start with 1,000 yen notes, right? So you're starting from a higher level. So that does make the bed look more appealing. 500 yen coins, they'd just bounce all over the place. Wouldn't work. Into the comments. Health content. Yeah, I'm sorry, I have no idea. Pizza Man story. DJ Sunny Side Up. Good to see you, DJ Sunny Side Up. Last stream before heading to your home country. All going well. I've got to go, and if all the immigration stuff gets sorted out, which I'll know in about a day, so we'll see. Fingers crossed. If it all goes to plan, I'll be probably doing one more show, and I'll say on that. So for now, not taking anything for granted, but I'll announce on Twitter. And I'll probably do a final show from Japan, and then I'll figure out the new schedule. So fingers crossed. But still around for one more week at least. have Barry White playing over those political vans instead of the usual drivel. It's not a bad idea there, Mr. Koichev. And what there again, I mean, it's Japan. If they played Hatsune Miku, they'll probably get people chasing the vans, wanting to marry the vans or something. I don't know. Not bad though. Tarakono again, indeed. Dan H, good to see you, Dan H. And hello, Salam Sadiq Hakan Guris, good to have you with us, our man from Florida. And yes, back into the topics. I'm just, Mr. Kordychip, I'm just pointing out that, just money alone probably won't increase the birth rate, although that's the failed approach that's been used until now. Interesting thing, so when I was studying Japanese, when I started studying Japanese, 1989, 13 years old in high school in New Zealand, one of the big lines was, at that time, I think the movie Rising Sun, starring Sean Connery and Wesley Snipes, had just came out. And there was a big deal being made about the fact that Japan, of course, in the bubble and going to the moon, that the Japanese economy, second largest GDP in the world, and was set probably before the year 2000 to overtake America and to become the highest GDP in the world. And people in Japan believed that, people in America believed that. They were making movies about how, think about all the movies in the 80s which set a future world where Japan was kind of now dominating the American economy. And this was the time, and I was learning Japanese because, of course, I knew it was going to make me rich and famous and successful. Well, it's a nice place. So of course, Japan did not overtake America. In fact, it plateaued and kind of fell a little bit. And then just after I came to Japan in the early 2000s, I think China overtook. And of course, no one trusted the statistics the first time that they overtook Japan. But by now, I think everyone accepts, even if they're messing with the numbers, there's no question China is now number 2, as it should be. I mean, it's 10 times bigger. But what is interesting is that Japan now looks like its rate of GDP is now falling to a point where probably in the near future, Germany is going to overtake Japan, and Japan is going to become the 4th largest economy. Which again, when you consider Germany's population, I believe like 85 million people, per capita, per capita, Japan is now below Taiwan and South Korea. So it's been going down for a while, and this all comes back into the sort of the nature of Japan's demographic decline. Again, that spending goes up and wages stay flat, and the economy goes down. And Japan's sort of been going for this kind of soft crash landing for a long time. But again, Japan is still a comfortable, nice place to live. And again, congrats to Germany on its economy seemingly doing so well. But it's that is an interesting thing and another milestone. Looking at the comments, Dan H, did I hear about Akio Toyota stepping down from Toyota? You know what? Now that you say it, I noticed it. I didn't look at it too closely, and so I didn't put it on the topics. But now that you say it, I realize, I should have paid more attention to that. I've been busy this week, and I haven't been watching NHK News. I've heard that he's handing over. Is he handing over to the head of the Lexus division? Is that right, or what is the story there? From my perspective, Akio Toyota, although he's been getting a lot of criticism for not pivoting to EVs the same way that the US and German automakers are, and still, I do give him credit. One, most cars around the world, Toyota, number one, is Toyota's brand. It isn't selling. It's actually increased its position. It's overtaken Volkswagen and the other car companies. The GM, I think, is the other one. It is the top selling car maker in the world, and they are focusing on. Petrol cars are still the top cars in the world. And in terms of what Toyota's overseen, as someone who likes race driving as well as being sort of an heir to the Toyota family, he promising to make Toyota cars interesting and exciting. And I think he's delivered on that, at least with what he's done with the new Corolla, even with the Prius. The Prius is cool. So I think he's done good things around that. However, I don't know exactly much about what was the motivation for him stepping down. I guess that was probably something that feeling from shareholders that the company needed to pivot with the times and double down on pivoting to EVs is probably something. I mean, he made announcements. He struck me as being energetic, and I didn't think doing that badly. But what can you do? So no, I haven't looked at the story in detail. Maybe you can share some details in the comments there. Other than I was a little bit surprised by it. I didn't think that he seemed to be doing a terrible job. So Koji Sato is the Lexus division head, correct? And I think that's a solid choice. I mean, obviously Lexus is just amazing. There's a Lexus place near where I live. I must say, I didn't like the grills on them. I didn't like the look of them, but it's kind of grown on me just walking past the car place every day. And particularly lately, I've seen a few of those. There's like a Lexus supercar. Like you don't see many of them around, but Jeremy Clarkson loves it. They're super rare, but I've seen like 3 or 4 of them lately, and they're really striking. Like again, I mean, of course, Toyota can make fantastic cars. So yeah, I don't know. Other comments here. Cobras Tenchi, Germany's GDP is also falling, more like crashing hard. Well, as you can see the numbers there, Germany's not doing well, but Japan is not doing well even more. Japan is doing worse. So, yeah, I guess it kind of, understandably with everything going on at the moment, but yes, a German refuting the assertion indeed. 25K a year, what? Mr. Cordychep, I don't know what that's a reaction to. I've probably missed something, but yeah. An article from Japan Times says it costs 63 million yen to raise a child. Yeah, no, that sounds about right. Probably all things up. Maybe more than that if you think of all the things that you have to move house probably as well. You know, all the other sort of costs. Yeah, it probably has a big impact. Dan H, I don't see how when the BOJ thinks 2% growth is possible, but everyone else is 0% or 1% best case. The new head is the head of Lexus. That's the little nugget that I've been hearing in the news. So yeah, it seems good. I mean, look, the other thing is that I don't know how good it is necessarily for car companies or anything to remain a family dynasty. Although that said, I had a positive impression of Akio Toyota. So, you know, hopefully it all goes well. Yuri the best. Good to see you, our man from Ukraine, our man from Kyiv. Good to see you. Welcome. You didn't miss much. We were talking about Japan's impending demographic crisis and how Germany is about to overtake Japan for GDP, Yuri. But glad that you could make it. So yeah, that's a thing. Coming back on polls in Japan on masks. So the government is looking, of course, they have decided to move forward with the plans to reclassify COVID as a as basically an equivalent category to influenza, which basically is mainly an administrative choice. It gives more flexibility for hospitals to be able to treat cases. It lowers the administrative burden of tracking and trace contacting all cases and so on. So it kind of makes sense in that regard. But at the same time, the government has been talking about, or within government, there have been people who have been saying that, yeah, we have to drop the masks thing. Seemingly ahead of the G7 summit in March in Japan, there are concerns that the government wants to sort of accelerate the idea of just to avoid friction, I guess, of normalizing not wearing masks outside. However, polls show in Japan we're fine as we are. People responding, 64.4% of people quite happy to go on wearing masks outside as they are, whereas 32% of people saying they would prefer, as a rule, not to wear masks. So you can see that no matter what the science sort of said, this is about indoor mask wearing, by the way, but it does continue to show that even though the government's pushing people towards indoor and outdoor not wearing masks, unless people judge that it's necessary, the same basically as with influenza. The social mood is still not, we're okay with masks. And I must admit, it's become kind of a habit. Look, I'm pretty sure, again, when or if I get to America, I'm probably going to blend in like I did with New Zealand, and I'll just follow what everyone else is doing. But I'm quite comfortable, you know, especially when it's cold. It's actually quite nice wearing a mask. It keeps your face warm. Your breath keeps your face warm. So a lot of people are still, the national mood is, let's just keep masking. It's not, obviously there are people who don't want to be masking. There are anti-vax, anti-maskers. They exist. It's 120 million people. Of course, there are a few, but you know, overall, you can just see walking around on the streets, particularly where I am in central Tokyo, that you just don't see. Honestly, the only people you see not masking, really foreigners actually, and it's a little bit annoying. You don't want to be you don't want foreigners to stand out in a way that could be perceived negatively, even though I think they're also, I don't care. People are free to do whatever they like, but I do care a little bit that it reflects on me negatively when people do that. So from that perspective, it does irk me. But that said, in principle, like I say, just going with the flow. It looks like the country's not really ready to change its position on that anyway. Back into the comments. In fact, no comments aimed at me, so there we go. Yeah, the first releases of EVs have not been great, but failure to move fast enough is being mentioned for the CEO change. Well, I can see our shareholders are worried and moving on that. I think, again, a lot of the criticism coming for Toyota feels a bit unfair. Toyota actually was a first mover on electric drivetrains, of course, but it always preferred hybrid because it was worried about the range problem. And it still is heavily invested in that. And its supply chain is heavily invested in that. But remember, it's built up all of these car battery drivetrains and solid state battery patents and so on that are going to be hugely valuable when the whole, car economy becomes EV based. So it's well positioned, but I agree it's moved slowly. And I think it's moved slowly mainly out of concern for Toyota is basically Aichi Prefecture. The entire Aichi Prefecture is based around small companies with supply relationships with Toyota, which when you go from making internal combustion cars to electric cars, 90% of those components aren't going to be needed anymore. And, most of those small companies have like 5-year, 6-year supply contracts with Toyota. So it makes it hard to pivot. But of course, that's the case with any established automaker. That's the advantage that Tesla's had to come in and disrupt, is that it hasn't had to worry about breaking relationships with part suppliers and so on. But there again, Toyota doesn't have a choice. Even if they have to create a new type of Lexus brand or something like that, I think they do need to do it. So DJ Sunny set up. Are we going to get a DJ set? I actually do have the iPad charged up, so if I get through the topics in time, I will play some tunes. By the way, I'm liking your tunes lately, and in fact, when I get to America, I want to do that. I want to do that some more. So I'd like to get back into it, but it's been great watching how much you've progressed as well, DJ Sunny Side Up. It's in fact, I should show you. I actually watch some YouTube channels. There's a guy, Henry the Business. I think he spells it DA, but Henry the Business, or just look up Henry Business, and he's got a great channel on producing music, and he showed a really cool producing tool that I want to try out that he showed the other day. I don't know. Remind me to DM you, and I'll share it with you later. But I definitely want to. We'll see if I can get through the show anyway. Back into the topics. I never thought of Okayama. When you think of bad driving in Japan, you think of Nagoya. Toyota Town, Aichi Prefecture, has the worst drivers in Japan, as well as Hokkaido, which I think, although Hokkaido is enormous, I think per capita driving accidents, everyone has to drive there, and they're big country roads and so on, so more accidents there. Of course, one thing that Japan is famous for is cars not stopping, not using their indicators, and not stopping at pedestrian crossings at all, ever. In fact, there were real fears around the Olympics that with lots of foreign tourists coming here expecting to cross crosswalks, that cars would follow the road rules. Again, it's like umbrellas. Like, Japanese are incredibly law-abiding, except where everybody agrees that this is a law we're going to ignore. And one of those seems to be like stopping for pedestrian crossings. And there was fears that there would be a lot of foreign Olympic tourists getting run over by cars, and campaigns to address that. And Okayama apparently is one of those places where, yes, you're taking your life in your hands using a pedestrian crossing. And so there's been a PR campaign in Okayama Prefecture, basically to basically say that while until now you had to be a ninja to be able to cross the road in Okayama, let's make it safe for anybody to walk across, please. And apparently it had like a 30% improvement or something. So, these campaigns are working and raising awareness that it's a crime. To me, they should be putting like cameras on the crossings and sending terrible fines to everyone who does it. It's life endangering, and it's, it shouldn't be a hard thing to comply with. But anyway, so that's the thing. Cobra Tenchi, Tesla had the company that manufactured the cameras. Tesla had the company that manufactured the cameras cut ties with Tesla a year or two ago. Tesla did? Oh, okay. By the way, super interesting as well. Germany is killing it. Germany, for all of the full self-driving, which is frankly misleading branding by Tesla. I mean, still remarkable, great technology. I'm still very excited about actual full self-driving cars happening, hopefully sometime soon. But amazing to see that after all the hype around Tesla, it's actually Mercedes-Benz that was the first to be certified a level 3 self-driving, where basically drivers can drive without having to be ready to take over the wheel most of the time. I think that's the classification. So yeah, it's nice to see that even the old car companies can pivot and really innovate. And again, disappointing. No question, it's disappointing that a company like Toyota isn't up there competing with Tesla and Mercedes-Benz on self-driving cars, for example. I mean, drivetrains is one thing, but the self-driving technology, again, that's an area where you'd think the Japanese people, the country which really innovated the driving GPS systems and stuff like that. Yeah, disappointing that Japan is not leading the way on that, but yeah, Germany's killing it right now. Fernando Gross, Toyota has no EVs available in Australia. I guess it'll happen, although I must admit the thing with Australia is the distances there, right? I suppose just for urban driving, it kind of makes sense, but you know, for driving, for what you get a Camry for or whatever, for driving from Adelaide to Melbourne, you know, yeah, you'd need a pretty good charging infrastructure there, which I suppose is happening, but yeah. Oh, and there's emergency vehicle in the background. That's right. There's a big road nearby, so we do occasionally get those. Yeah. Oh, bicycle commute. DJ Sunnyside up. Do be careful out there. Yes, indeed. So yeah, thinking about a man strapping a GoPro to my chest for cycle commutes. It'll be good YouTube content if you. I mean, but geez, play it safe. I mean, I don't have to tell you, right? No, there's no point taking a risk with anything. Honda Legend was first commercially car with level 3. Oh, well, only available in Japan. S-Class is more widely available. I did not know that. Thank you for that. For that. And Aaron, good morning. Glad that you can make it. Nice to have our moderator in here. Although also glad that we're such a well-behaved bunch. We don't need. We continue to survive. 15 watching, 9 likes. I only see 8 likes. I don't know. Maybe someone gave a like and took it back again. Now I feel sad. What can I do? I do appreciate the likes, by the way. It helps the algorithm, and I do appreciate it. So if you like. Back into the stories. I've talked multiple times about how I have a problem with the multiple arrest thing. How basically in Japan, when police arrest somebody, the basic strategy is rather than go and collect evidence and present to prosecutors who then charge someone. The idea is it's much more efficient to just hold the person until they psychologically break, and in order to get out of detention, confess. And so basically they try to detain people for as long as possible. And to the extent that any evidence is gathered, it's mainly gathered for the purpose of putting psychological pressure on detainees to confess, including in cases of famous crimes or big crimes, that they'll leak that information to the media, which I also think is highly unethical. To do this with suspects who are being detained and are being questioned by police, for the police to share all the details on the basis of which they suspect a certain person, to basically overwhelm the person and save them the trouble of investigating the case. But that is how these cases go in Japan, and it's true that the 99% conviction rate is based largely on confessions. It's also true that for the very small percentage of people, for the percentage of people that, not a substantial percentage of people that there is no evidence and they didn't do it and police can't make a case, that they will not proceed with the case. Hence, it won't impact the conviction rate. Very few people survive when the police decide it's you. And I've known cases of people, skipping a bill at a karaoke place and getting in a scuffle with the staff who happened to be a rugby player. There was a famous case of this a few years ago where, the 2 guys who were arrested and rightfully arrested, but they were detained for like over a year by police. It took something like 2 years to get to trial. And one of them, it turned out, was found innocent because he sort of came back after the fact to find his friend who was there beating up people. The friend, of course, was convicted. So yeah, basically they rearrest. They'll find any small thing to rearrest for. I mean, it's funny that the Amishinukyo cult that nerve gassed the Tokyo subway was first arrested. The first thing that they charged them with, because they just wanted to draw out the detention for as long as possible to gather evidence and put pressure on the suspects. They charged them with, possession of a paper-cutting guillotine with a blade of longer than 13 centimeters. That was the first thing that they charged them with. And they just kept adding these things on. So interesting case here. Again, a case from Sora News, just giving a recent example of how police will just arrest and rearrest, basically to be able to put as much pressure and get full cooperation with these suspects. This was an interesting case in the sense that while the people are terrible people, they were driving around in the area between Chiba, Saitama, and Ibaragi. I used to live around there actually in Noda. Nothing going on there at all. Just for an idea of how little there is to do there, the people involved apparently were hoping that by throwing like concrete bricks at cars that they'd trigger a car chase, and they tried this with 7 people, damaging their cars. I mean, could have been life-threatening, some of what they were doing, and they were caught on car cameras and so on, throwing concrete blocks towards oncoming traffic as they were driving by. So they were quickly detained. Because they did this, and there were victims in all 3 prefectures, however, the police held them for apparently up to 10 days each time, even after they confessed. And then when they were done, they'd hand them over to the next prefecture that would rearrest them on the same charge. And then they'd hand them over to the next prefecture. So they spent something like a month just being circulated around detention, even though they confessed every time that it happened. But again, it's just sort of is the way that the police operate in Japan. And it's why, apart from the fact that you don't want to ever do anything that will get you in trouble with the police, it also indicates that if you do get in, if you are even in danger of being tangled with the police, particularly where it wasn't you, you want to clarify that very quickly and show a cooperative attitude. You don't want to ever get into trouble with the police in Japan. Because they don't operate on 48 hours detain or release. They keep you as long as they want to. Dan H, if you're arrested, would you be the 1% or 99% of peoples? Well, that's an interesting one because, pardon me. The other thing is that if you don't confess and they do proceed with the trial, so if they actually proceeded with the trial and you fought it, you would get a more severe sentence than if you confess, because it will be seen as lack of remorse. So being innocent, is interpreted as lack of remorse. You'd be more likely to get the death penalty or whatever, which is another reason that innocent people confess in Japan. I'd again like to make sure that I was just never in either of those percentages, that I never ended up in the court system. If I was arrested and I was innocent, I would like to think I would be in the 1%. As someone with some experience in the legal profession, and if I was in the 99%, I don't know. I mean, if I was in the 99%, I did it. I mean, if I did it, whatever, definitely my recommended strategy would be to confess right away. Fighting it isn't a good strategy here. You'll just go through hell and you'll end up in the same or an even worse place. So if I did whatever I was being detained for, yeah, I think cooperating fully is your best way through the process, honestly, as it is honestly anywhere. Taking the best legal advice that you can get. Don't make the decisions on your own, but in which case I would be in the 99%. But again, to be in that position, yeah, you want to avoid that anyway. Quinn Rankin, it's like the old days in England when you couldn't defend yourself against a murder charge because that would insult the integrity of the prosecutor. I don't know that England's ever been exactly like that. In fact, I've never heard of that. Yeah, and it's not so much that you're attacking the integrity of the prosecutors. Nobody thinks that the prosecutors here are that high and mighty, but it is interpreted as lack of remorse, which it might be. I mean, sometimes it actually is. Sometimes you have guilty people who are caught doing it. The case of the Saitama, the murder of the foreigner and his wife and daughter, the guy was arrested before for vandalizing their cars and harassing them, and was seen running away from the scene. And he's pleading not guilty, so he's going for the 1%. And if it was him, and again, I've been tainted by all the evidence planted in the media by the police to put pressure on him to confess. this is exactly the strategy, but he does look like he's not showing remorse, and that should invite a more harsh sentence, particularly a triple murder. That opens it up to possible death penalty in Japan. So we'll see. I'm a law-abiding citizen, so it wouldn't be in either percentage. Well, I'd hope not, but it can happen that you can be falsely charged. Like I said, I know someone who's been in the 1%, who was innocent, but went through more than nearly 2 years in detention before trial, and was acquitted. But that is super rare. Other stuff. So I have to confess, although I'm not making preparations for America yet, like I say, paperwork stuff, I should get a confirmation hopefully this week as to what the plan is. I must admit, I took instances. I had an eye. Last week, you might have noticed my eye was really red, like for a whole week. I had something in my eye. Something was wrong with my eye. And so I went to an eye doctor. And I also, a proctologist and an eye doctor. Just thought I should check everything out at both ends, because the last time I went to New Zealand, I came back kind of in a bad way. I'm so used to using bidets that, I think give a tendency to wipe too much when you're overseas. And, that causes problems, which over 2 weeks was like really bad. And so, it's funny. I got some magnesium tablets, which are saving my life. And which I think I'm going to have to take with me to America. And I did get this thing, which I think, I must admit, the thought of being in a place for a long time without one of these is just too much. This is, for those asking, is a portable washlet. The idea being not that I would actually carry this around with me to work or anything, but I would definitely have this at home where I could wash it and sanitize it. But it is a bidet. A personal bidet. Japanese, apparently, I was reading the ratings, and everyone was saying, oh yeah, I used to go overseas and I would die from not being able to use these, and this thing saved my life. Is all the ratings is 5 stars on Amazon. So I thought that's what I need. So I got one of these. So with this, I should be able to travel almost anywhere. I mean, it is a bit like the not Demolition Man. Is it Demolition Man? It is Demolition Man. The 3 seashells. I do feel I realize that it's weird. Oh, he doesn't know how to use the 3 seashells. Well, yes, yeah. When you lived in Japan, this is one of those things you can't live without once you have it. It kind of ruins you for living anywhere. So Also, I've been making a point. Lunar New Year, of course. Happy New Year to all those people celebrating Lunar New Year. A lot of co-workers in places like Korea, Taiwan, China, Singapore, and so on, celebrating Lunar New Year at the moment. In Korea, it's a particular milestone because they're changing the age counting system. Korea's always had this thing where when you ask someone, Korean, how old are you? And they say that they're 25. It's actually counted from the start of the year that they were conceived, which means apparently, I think that's how it works, which means that their birth age, as we would count on the Western calendar, could be between 1 and even up to nearly 2 years less than what they say they are, because they count it from so much earlier. If you were born on December 31st, my understanding is that you'd treat your birthday or your age as if you were born on January 1st the year before. I'm not sure if that's exactly it, but it's something like that. So that's how it can be up to 2 years. So Korea's just decided, because of the chaos this causes in international relations, that from this year, Koreans are going to now be using the Western age system, which means that for lots of lucky Koreans, they are now 1 to 2 years younger. So I always say Happy New Year and congratulations on becoming younger this year. And they all seem to be very happy with that. So making a point of saying that. Dan H., I wouldn't underestimate what Hiko Simon will be like when he returns from America. I'll have unlimited access to butter in America. I must say, I'm not excited about American cheese. I was always really disappointed by that. It was just aisles of orange plastic processed cheese. It was horrible. But butter, I must admit, I'm looking forward, but again, I'm touching wood and doing all of those things. Paperwork pending, but yes, I will be looking forward to that. 3 minutes, too many stories. Never mind, I can get through this. In proof that only the good die young, now 85-year-old former prime minister, I think the lowest polling prime minister in Japanese history, the most disliked Japanese prime minister in history, and walking gaffe-prone disaster zone, Yoshiro Mori, who's also famous for being in the faction of the Japanese government that was kind of the pro-Russia, the let's be friends with Russia faction. uh, which is headed up by faction member Munio Suzuki, who is out of jail for receiving bribes for construction contracts in Russia. I mean, they've both been saying how Japan should not be supporting Ukraine so much. And basically, just so Yuri, if you're worried about Japan's level of support for Ukraine, this guy spoke up, and everybody piled in. I mean, this is a guy that everybody hates, and even Doi Sukarno, the wife of the former dictator of Indonesia, actually even today came and said he's a demented old man in response to these comments. But Mori saying that basically it's unthinkable that that Russia would lose the war. If something happened, something harder would happen. So, like endorsing Russia, like invading more and more countries, is like the right thing to do. I must say, again, I'm very happy to see this last week, of course, big milestone with Germany finally committing to not only permitting Poland and other countries to contribute their Leopards, but to provide Leopards and the maintenance needed for them directly. Obviously, it looks like the Germans were a bit nervous about being seen as acting alone, so they did convince the Americans to send M1 Abrams. And it looks like America is even possibly going to be authorizing or directly providing F-16s to Ukraine. Of course, it's awful that these things are necessary, but again, whatever it takes to let Ukraine defend itself and get to get its territory back, and again to teach Russia that it can't just stomp all over other countries like Russia's got this idea of the sphere of influence idea that it's entitled to do whatever the hell it likes, and it's been allowed to get away with it in places like Georgia because they're not easy to help. And it was trying it on in Ukraine, and it was pretty obvious that if the West allowed this, that the Baltics could be next. So and even Poland by the looks of things. So I think that the support is actually. I really wish that the level of support that we're seeing now of all the heavy equipment. I wish it had been sooner. And I hope that it leads to Ukraine being able to make similar gains that it made, during its last big rush that it had a few months ago when it took Kharkiv back. The idea that Ukraine's doomed and we should all give up and we should support Putin because of this. Wow, just nobody likes you, Mori, and this is why. And I think actually huge credit to the West how they've handled the situation. I mean, Ukraine. Not to say Ukraine doesn't have problems. I know people from Ukraine, and nobody says that it doesn't. But I do hope that all of this support from the West, in turn, when Ukraine gets all of its territory back, including Crimea, and all of the dust settles, I hope the recognition of the need for Ukraine for its future to be part of the EU and to be part of NATO means that they'll look at the other problems that they have with corruption. And so on within the country and look to resolve those. Surely they'll find the incentive from this. But again, it's good to see the West really committing to the defense there and Japan committing to the defense. And and so in some ways it's good to have a troll like Mori just to remind everybody of why they're supporting them. Only 1 in 7 young Japanese women think that they'll definitely get married. I read about another poll that said that only 16% of young people think that they will get married. So again, the birth rate crisis, just marriage is not appealing at the moment. And I don't know what the answer is. And I think that some of the reasons for people not wanting to get married are not just negative against marriage, they're also positive for single life. And I don't know. I don't know how you address that. The fact that people can pursue careers and hobbies and interests and so on. And Japan is very convenient for that sort of a thing. And, the sort of, I think it's as much of people wanting to enjoy their own lives and not wanting to sacrifice or compromise their lives. It is as much a part of it as anything else. But we'll see what the government comes up with. In other news from Japan, police in Ofuna have arrested somebody with selling illegal anime girl huggy pillow covers. If you ask them what way they were illegal, only copyright violation, nothing. But I'm not aware that there were other types of violations involved. It was simply that they were making these huggy, life-size anime girl pillows, without copyright permission. But yeah, crime. See, people say that crime isn't a problem in Japan, but here you go. This guy was trying to sell like 72 of these anime, life-size cushions, and 72 he was in possession of. But apparently he had made money from the operation over the years, importing them and reselling them. So there you go. And final story for the week, just heading right up on the hour, we've got Japan's foreign worker population has hit a record 1.82 million. So yeah, I mean, when you think the population coming down and the foreign population, that's the working population. So I assume that doesn't include kids or retirees. I mean, mainly kids. So yeah, still less than 2%, I suppose. But of the working population, it probably is a solid 2% and definitely increasing. Some questions about whether Japan will continue to be able to attract workers with the wages going down and how competitive it will be. And frankly, the way that its internship scheme has not really been good for Japan's image for attracting workers. So we'll see how all of that goes. But again, it is good to see Japan slowly becoming more metropolitan or cosmopolitan. 5.5% rise in the number of in the percentage of foreign workers from last year. Although I guess last year, of course, we had with the whole coronavirus thing, a lot of people went home. So we'll see. So that is the show. Those are all the topics. And final look through, we've got Auntie Liana. Yep, Mori is always sus indeed, and believe in yourself. Good to see you. Better late than never category. Arrived in time to say goodbye. Yeah. And Theodore Sharp. Good to see you. I'm glad that you made it. I'll tell you what, since I'm set up and since I haven't been making beats at all lately on the Korg, I am going to do a quick Korg beat. Let me hook this up now. We'll see how I go. Dun, dun, dun. Dun. So we'll do an outro. You won't be able to see anything, but you should be able to hear it. Okay, opening Korg. I probably could do desk mode, but then I'll realize you can see I'm wearing shorts. And I know that you don't want to look at my legs, so I'll figure out a solution for this. If I'm in America, I'll probably set up a deal where I can show. So what kind of, I guess some hip-hop style music is probably what I want to do. Okay, let's set up a new track. Cancel, not now. Okay, so BPM. I think if I'm doing a hip-hop track, I'm going to make it 105, slightly fast. For the key, let's make it Dorian. I know it sounds like a Japanese rice-based meal. Let's pick a drum beat and let's just do breakbeat. So I'll do kind of breakbeat music. So let's turn on the sound. Let's do a quick sound test. Should be this one. Oh, there we go. Okay, let's pump up the sound. Oh, there we go. Okay, so let's do a breakbeat. Let's make it a 4-bar beat. Okay, so that's the beat. And let's add a bass line. Let's see what kind of bass we like here. That was unintentional, but it came out well. Okay, let's stick with that. That's kind of cool. Okay, let's add some more stuff. Put a hi-hat on there. Let's try a different. Let's try a hi-hat beat loop on here. Hi-hat. Okay, one more layer. Let's put in one more layer. This is pretty cool. Well, DJ Sunny setup recognizes the unmanned brake. Okay, let's try. Oh, that's nice. That's cool. I like this. I'm going to save that. That was cool. Anyway, that's the show. Thank you, DJ Sunny Setup, for reminding me to make a beat. I am going to do that. Quint Rankin, no, you cannot see my legs. That's the end of the show. Thank you for keeping me company as always. Have a good week, everybody. Do stay safe. Do not get the rota. Do not get food poisoning. I don't know how I keep getting it. And yeah, I'll keep you posted. Next week, we'll definitely have plans as to whether this will be coming from America show or not. So yeah, see you all soon. Stay safe and boom, peace. Remember to like if you like, by the way. I do appreciate it. See you later. Any shot.